Everyone, we're live, and all I see is blackness, but hopefully you guys see a dragon. And this is going to be our live about, and I'm here, Meten, with Nancy, and me and Nancy have been discussing this for a while. Nancy does human design. She does many other different modalities, and we've been having this great conversation ongoing for months now, and we'd like to continue it today in response to whoever amongst you can be present. We're about half an hour late. I was having issues on how to have the image present correctly, as well as starting upside down and then having to delete those videos. So I'm going to start now. Hopefully, if people jump in, I'll see it in the chat. I'm going to put a hello in the chat just to make sure the chat is working. Nancy, could you do the same? Could you say hello in the chat if you see the chat? Oh, you can't do because you'd have to be on the YouTube.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want me to try or not?
No, because I don't want. Oh, nice. Hey, Erica. That's awesome. Erica's here. And
Great.
a couple other people are here. Awesome.
Awesome.
Jordan's
Hey,
here.
Erica.
That's Jordan. Hey, Jordan. Hey, Erica. Nice to see you guys. Carolyn, nice to see you. Wow. Thanks for waiting. You guys, I really appreciate. It's been a nightmare for this last half hour to try to figure it out. I hadn't done it in so long. But we'll go ahead and start. Even if it's just you guys, that's awesome. So let me start. Nancy, do you want to say a little, introduce yourself, maybe share your background, maybe share the book we both have been reading that's inspired this conversation, and any other little tidbits just to give everyone a context of why we're talking about what we're talking about.
Well, sure. Well, I have been in the human design experiment now for about 7 years. For the human design folks, I'm a quad right emo projector, and I'm a 5/1, and so that means I like to research. So I've been heavily researching human design for these past years, especially the cosmology, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today in part. But also honestly, for 30 years, due to really a big physical healing crisis when I was younger, I have been investigating both with research and with my life and my body, multiple holistic healing modalities and meditation paths and spiritual paths and new age paths, almost everything you can mention I've done. At this point, it's all simplified down pretty much to being present. Human design, I do German New Medicine also. So I think that's me in a nutshell. And Mario and I have been having wonderful discussions about what really is the nature of this reality, looking at it from the lens of human design and some other lenses. Also, what is our consciousness? Are we creators? Are we passengers? What is that really? So I guess that's it in a nutshell. What would you say, Mario?
We've also been exploring, we should mention the book that we've been reading.
Yes.
That's been inspiring a lot of this. And this is The Prophecy of Ra Uruhu. Could you remind us the author, Nancy? I'm forgetting.
Yes, Stephen Rhodes. And I want to say that I made a point to look this time to see if the words of this book are from him or from Ra, but he says clearly that he is not wanting to interject his own opinions. So I'm pretty certain it's an accounting of what Ra has said, which to me is important.
And as we get into this, I just want to invite everyone on the chat. You guys can ask questions maybe I'll let you guys know when maybe. But so keep in mind any questions you have. Even if we're really into it and discussing things, go ahead and ask questions and I'll just note them and come back to them if it's in like the middle of something. But otherwise, we just want to give you guys a very clear context of what we're discussing. So I'm gonna present the dichotomy. And thanks for that intro, Nancy. That's great. So that's the book that's inspired us. And the tension that I'm presenting, the kind of dichotomy or polarity, is between the ideas of whether consciousness is best expressed individually through the auric biofield, or is it best expressed when humans get together en masse, or when humans get together in certain numerical expressions, be it 2, 3, 5, 100, 150. And there's many other systems besides human design that also contextualize what this means, what certain numerical pairs or patterns of humans when they get together, and what happens. There's all sorts of science about it, as well as what biologically occurs and happens when humans get together. But I think we'll present the New Age expression of that. And I use the term New Age, of course, as a generic frame, because there's many different systems that humans have that explore how it works in groups. But so we'll start there, Nancy. I'll share a couple that come to mind, and you can as well. And then after that, so we're putting everything kind of like under New Age umbrella, and kind of separating human design's assessment of how many of what that means for humans to be in each other's aura or not be in each other's aura. So we're going to present it as such, a bunch of different systems, and then we'll get into the system of human design, which of course is titled a system of differentiation. So I'm going to start with a couple, and then you can go ahead, Nancy, and add in, as you feel. I'm just going to come up with a couple that I can think of. So, oh yeah, Beth's asking about the screen. So yeah, let me explain the screen so you guys don't feel like you're in the dark. We're all in the dark, of course. That's the whole kind of experience of this realm, right? So let us mirror that for a moment. The reason I put it in the dark is because it wasn't allowing me to show my the image, my Plutonic planes image, and Nancy has an image as well, but it was forcing me to go live my image. I mean, my real physical image, and I didn't want that. And plus, when it started, I was upside down, and so me and Nancy started panicking, and then it went live, and then I had to delete it. Okay, anyways, that's nonsense. So here's a couple that come to mind really quickly. So in magic, whether it's chaos magic or the history of magic, black magic, white magic, whatever, those systems, in recent times, it's come to the mainstream consciousness, this idea of egregores. And egregores is just kind of a simplistic idea that there's an energy consciousness that takes over when humans get together, under a specific rubric of ideas or ideologies. And this is no secret. I mean, this is kind of well known historically, ideologically. However, it was presented in such a frame that it was almost as if like an energy or some kind of being would take over this kind of group of humans for that particular cause, whatever it is, and thus narrow down the consciousness expression of that group, narrow it to the point that it's only feeding that specific ideology, and thus eliminating any kind of individuality. And I'm going to introduce the human design terms of individuality, tribe, and collective. You guys don't have to know exactly what that is. Just take it generically for the moment. And then when I go into human design, I'll go more in depth. But I think those are pretty clear terms. Humans operate either individually or in a tribe, which would mean a close, tight-knit group of humans, or they operate as a collective, which is something modern digital technology reaches, right? We're on video now, and you guys are everywhere, scattered around the world. And so this is a collective endeavor that we're undertaking at this moment. So there's egregore and magic. There's another system out of Russia called Transurfing, And that system has a different term for its very similar frame, and that's pendulums. And their definition is very similar. It's any time a group of humans get together, a pendulum is created, a certain energy force. And that energy force controls the dynamics of that group. And again, starts to eliminate any type of individuality and only supports the ideology of that group. And this is something completely energetic, as I understand it. And Nancy, feel free to jump in if I'm conflating or confusing something. So that's another system that shows evidence of that particular idea or expression. I'll let you go here, Nancy, because I'm starting to forget. Do you have any other systems that you can think of that also carry forth this idea or expression that humans are either that qualify as humans being in group as something that we should strive for, or have a definition for that, or a qualification of it that you can think of?
Well, yeah, I'll guess what I'll say is what I really notice culturally is this huge push to be part of a group. Even have you noticed that corporations now, it's like now you're in the AT&T family or the this corporate family or that corporate family. You're part of our family now. And I guess I'm saying two different things, but that's a push to being part of a family, not just on your own. And I think even in the general culture, it's looked down upon as being selfish. You're being selfish if you're out kind of doing your own thing. And then I was just thinking of all the religions. The religions tend to push that you need to go and be in group worship. So it's not quite the same as what you're saying, but what I see is that really in general, there's a push away from individualization in a certain way. But that's not really a system. I guess I'm just making an observation of culture.
That's brilliant, though, because it's really important, because in itself, media is in itself a system of thought control. So
Right.
it is in itself a system. So I think we can express that what you're saying is the media system promotes group consciousness.
Yes. And I think that's all on purpose. Absolutely on purpose. I would like to say one other thing. I keep referencing this in my life because my parents were born in 1926. They're almost like grandparents, really. And so I grew up with a different kind of culture in a way in the United States in a small town. But I notice the difference now that people, you just kind of left people alone and you assumed they could take care of themselves. And unless they asked for help, then you'd help them. But now what we've got is everyone, especially in the United States, thinking, oh, I know what's good for you. I know what's good for you. I'm going to take care of you. We need to all do this together. We're all in this together. So I feel like I've seen a shift in the culture in that time.
Can you elaborate a little on this shift?
Oh, yeah. And I guess I'm also seeing it because now I'm traveling. I'm in France right now, for example. I also have been interacting with people from Russia. And to me, it's more like when I was a child, meaning that you would never go up and to someone and if they told you some issue they had. First of all, they probably wouldn't tell you their issues. They just keep them to themselves. Secondly, if they did, you wouldn't say, well, I think you should do this and I think you should do that. Or this idea that we're all in this together. It was more that I take care of myself and my family, and you take care of your family and yourself, and absolutely we'll help each other, but not, I know what's best for you. I mean, just go on Facebook, for God's sake. Everyone's saying, do this, do that. I think everyone should go to this movie. This is the best thing ever. Everyone's trying to tell everybody what's good rather than just being who they are. And to me, that's part of this kind of I'm part of a group and I'm responsible for other people rather than being an individual responsible for myself.
Yeah, it's almost like modern the dictates or the lines of modern friendship. I think what's being encouraged in this collective consciousness is a friend is someone I could tell them what to do, tell them how to live their life. I could message them what videos they should be watching, right? We all do this. It's part of our collective consciousness now. It's so integrated. I mean, I do
Mm-hmm.
this all the time. You know what I mean? Like it's what we're doing.
Mm.
Now, we're not necessarily doing it with that conscious intention of I'm going to program all my friends to think exactly like me, or all my group, or all my clients, or all, whatever it is, because we don't want that. Do we not want that? Or, right? What's the ideas here that's really being promulgated? Is it that we want a group consciousness so that we can all be on the same page and we all can be one? What does that phrase mean in the context of this modern push, this modern anti-individualist push? Does it mean, is essentially the definition of all these ideas being promulgated, is it we are one? And what does that mean, we are one?
Mm. That's really sharp, brilliant there, Mario. I think so. I think it's all a push basically to get us away from paying attention to our own self and being self-embodied and responsible. And that, right, in the new age community, holy cow, is the we're all one thing. That's hugely pushed. Not just in the new age community, but I think in the kind of progressive community.
And okay, so we've contextualized. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that right now, if you're clear on that. It seems that we're contrasting right now systems that describe group consciousness with specific definitions. Human design says it's the wall. Transurfing says it's called pendulums. Magic calls it egregores. If you guys know any other definitions, please share in the chat. And we're contrasting it with the obvious ones that don't self-describe themselves, which is media. Obviously, social media, what we're on now, is a form of collective expression of consciousness through digital means. Anything else? Oh yeah, religions you mentioned, Nancy. Religions, yeah, very much so. The religions are so powerful that they're represented by institutions whose purpose is to express only group consciousness, right? They only
Right.
want us to express as servants of these religions, as we don't get titles, we don't get anything. We're just the worshipers, right? However we're called, right? I love in the movie Conan from the 80s. Um, the worshipers of Thulsa Doom were called the children of doom. And their whole philosophy was, to just be nothing, just be empty vessels roaming around for the energy of Thulsa Doom. I mean, this is just hilarious when you watch these old movies, and all these like old themes, and it's so verbatim. And then we're not even mentioning science fiction, right? And
Mm,
and the
right.
many, oh, there's that film from the I think 80s or 90s. There's a science fiction film called Logan's Run, where once you turn 30, you're hunted and killed. And so you're only allowed to live in this world, it's kind of a digital world. It's kind of a metaphor for a realm. And then one of the characters escapes, and the natural world is outside. So meaning to say that the attempt for group consciousness in a lot of science fiction films is an attempt to separate humans from the natural world and place them inside an artificial world. And maybe that's the process of how they do it. Maybe having collective controls over having these group consciousness expressions of communication, maybe that is how that frequency band, and when we tap into it, maybe that's how we're caught in that frequency reality. And those sci-fi movies were giving us messages about how to escape it. in terms of, in other words, return to the natural world. I'll stop talking there. I keep
Oh,
going.
that's freaking brilliant, Mario. Yeah, I would say for sure. I kept thinking about, to me, it's easiest to think about in terms of like pick any religion or make up a religion. It's like everyone's saying the same thing. It's group consciousness, but it's also just group think, right? It's just everyone's on the same, thinking the same thing and saying the same thing and doing the same thing. And that's a frequency. And of course you can manipulate people, but if everyone's individual, then if you're a manipulator, it's harder to manipulate. But if everyone's in a group, you can manipulate them easily. And what you're saying is, yeah, by frequency, for sure, it would be all a certain frequency. And then that movie, the people, right? He went out to nature, right? Well, when you're in nature, then you're not in any kind of group think. You're part of life, right? You're reminded of the life force and the life force moving through you. Yeah. And the pendulum idea is that similar to that too. I was just rereading reading it really for the first time in Human Design, similar idea. Yeah. And I think that, good heavens, look at the United States now. We've got two groups fighting over politics. That's all the people can think about. It's just in their brains. It's so interesting. And that's a frequency for sure.
So maybe now we move it more. Let's just be flat out straight with it. So, or there's one more thing. Hold on. There's one more thing that's been created that's very unique to modern times because of social media. And that is this push I've observed in many different new age healing circles and systems and expressions of people getting together and praying together, right? I like to say praying as in preying. It's a submissive position, and but if that's the energy people are giving out, it's because it's all they know. I mean, maybe they're not even doing it in that sense. They're just, anytime we think of something, we're giving energy to it. I mean, that's just how this frequency game works, right? So anytime like we're even reflecting on something, we're sending energy in that direction. So what I'm talking about is you have all these group consciousness collective events occurring in the last 20, 30 years, which started, and it's probably even before, but like the hippie, the whole Woodstock, the whole hippie kind of concerts, right? That started in the 70s. There's probably stuff earlier, but that carried forward to what we have these days, which is like these big concert events, right? These big, like 2-3 day concert events, or people getting together for world peace and praying together, right? Or these online collectives where everybody meets at a certain time on YouTube or on some kind of channel, and they all do the same thing or watch the same images. This is just rampant. I mean, this is everywhere. Group consciousness is so promoted on every level of social media expression that it's just people I think we take it for granted that that's what we want to do to help humanity. Let's all get together and let's all merge our energies. What does that mean, Nancy? What does that feel like to you, to merge our frequencies? Do you think that, like you were describing the other day, we were talking about it as humans, as like circuit boards, right? The human design chart is in itself a type of circuit board that has connections and has disconnections, has open circuitry, has defined circuitry. What does that mean? What does that mean to you when you hear all humans getting together? What happens with those frequencies?
Well, I can say personally for me what happens. It's awful. Well, no. If I'm interacting in a group and I'm walking on my own and the people are around me, that's fine. But if everyone's together and we're all chanting or whatever, no, it doesn't feel good to me. And personally, I keep wanting to share this. Is it right if I share a personal thing that happened?
Yeah, personal stories are the best.
Okay. I don't know if you all know Barbara Marciniak and the Pleiadians. Well, I went some years ago, before I even knew human design. I'd been reading that stuff, and I went to see her in person. She, I don't know if she's even popular anymore, but she channeled, quote unquote, whatever that is, Pleiadians, whatever they are, otherworldly beings, and they had all these messages, and a lot of books were written, super popular. She might still be popular. So I'm being very open, went to see her. And I usually didn't do that. I wasn't into channelings at all, but I went with my friend in Nevada City, actually, Mario. And at that time, I was open and interested. I wasn't like, oh my God, this is terrible. But when I went and I was listening to her, and then she had a group meditation where we were to just sit and be open to the Pleiadian energy. And also, we were guided to do some kind of meditation, to go somewhere and to get some information. And my whole internal thing was like, no. It was like, hell no, I'm not doing this. And so I sat back and watched, and I thought, this is a big fat energy harvest. And I watched everybody just like give up their authority, their energy, all to this frequency. So I feel like I witnessed it totally right there. And there was a time in years past where I would have done it without questioning. I think because of this idea that you mentioned, Mario, that we're so immersed in this idea that we all need to band together to help the planet, to do whatever, to raise our frequency. But what I saw and what I felt was, oh my gosh, these people are just losing their energy right and left. Not completely disempowering.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure all of us have examples. I have examples I don't even want to share. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's new age circles that use humans as batteries in order to like incarnate entities into human beings. Like I've seen this, with my own eyes. I've been at my own event that was like that. And that was just out of control. Like, wow. I mean, that's like, we know that energy harvesting is happening, but what about when we voluntarily agree to it, right? In person at these events, being told that it's a great thing to dissolve our own frequencies and enmesh them in some kind of collective group.
Right. That's what I just described for me that was there. But yeah, and I think this is happening even, like you said, in more subtle ways. Like you don't think you're doing that when you go to a football game or to a whatever, but really you're part of a whole big energy thing. I think it's pretty much almost the same thing that's happening.
I'm going to share with you some of the comments, Nancy, because you're not seeing them. I'm just going to write a response to Erica. Okay, so Twilight Mist said, as we were talking, he said, it's like we're accepting, well, I'm adding that part in, but a group accepted version of oneself that becomes like a tulpa vying for dominance to be you. And he says, well, I never realized that before. That is a profound observation. Because it's like, I think that's the programming, is like, you're a better person when you're merged with the collective. This is the true you now, because we're made at every intersection to feel guilty if we're not adding to the collective, right? If we're not a part of the group, if we're not saying, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I agree, right? No, I'm not an individual. I'm going to agree with everyone. And, yes, you can take my soul. You can dissolve my essence. Yes, right? And so I think that's the idea that's being expressed here, that he's expressing, is like, you're only allowed to accept a new collective version of yourself that's merged and accepted on a collective scale. And he's describing it as it becoming some kind of entity that you more and more identify with. I mean, that's the programming, is to no longer identify with the core grounded energetic self in the body, but something else, something that is connected to some sort of collective egregore or pendulum or energetic. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's happening.
So,
And it's me, we're going to talk about human design in a minute, but it doesn't in a way matter. It's like sucking the life force, if you want to look at it that way. All our life force, we're just giving it up to something else. It's like, why did you even incarnate in a body if you're just going to give it up to this whole thing, you know? So the egregore, the pendulum, the whatevers, the parasitic intelligences, whatever, are just, I think, feeding on all that energy. Right? It's just going out of our bodies into that. And it's quite brilliant, right? Make people feel like that's enlightenment, or that's going to get you to ascension, or that's going to be how you heal the planet.
Yeah, exactly. How you heal the planet, how you ascend, merging with the collective energetic, whatever that is. I like in Toltec Shamanism, they use the word flyers for like these beings that feed on us on certain frequencies, feed on us almost all the time. Supposedly they feed on us almost all the time, and they feed on us just enough that we still retain a lot of our energy so we can enjoy our life, and not so much so that, they feed on us till our deaths, our energetic deaths.
And
So
what
go ahead.
the 3D example of that is pharmaceutical companies. They're just pumping you full of pharmaceutical drugs, so you're able to still go to work and give your energy up to the corporation, but not so much that you die quickly. You die slowly. It's like, to me, the same thing.
Yeah, because those drugs, don't they like harden the body? Aren't they full of preservatives like our foods that just like
pharmaceuticals, I think,
extend the
yes.
life
I
of the
think
body?
they're right. They're not healing the issue at the core level, which would give you more life essence. They're just kind of keeping you going, sort of at a bare physical level. Not healing, and then you're more and more reliant on them. So you have to give more and more money to get more and more drugs, but you can keep working for the manager corporate job.
Yeah, paying for our own like paying the parasites for their parasitism on our energies.
Exactly.
It's such a circle. Denise mentioned that putting others up on pedestals, thinking they know what's best. Now that, in a sense, that's the whole like issue, and I think that even extends in the human design. I don't know how much we'll address of that today, how deep we're going to go with that, because all these systems are foreign systems to some degree. I mean, there's humans that are bringing these systems of thought and these ideologies and these energetic to us, which makes things very confusing, as to what's correct and what's not. And Denise's point is that putting others, a lot of this is just blatant giving our power away. Someone else knows better than me. They know how my body works. I don't know how my own body works, right? And I'll plug in new German medicine here. I mean, new German medicine is all about learning how to allow the body to heal itself and not interfering with that healing.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite. And I can say, so I had severe chronic fatigue, like had a severe onset at age 27. I had to drop out of graduate school. I couldn't do the things I could do. I was, pretty non-functional. So it's been like 30 years I've been working on healing that. And I've tried tons of different stuff. And German New Medicine's been the most effective, which is basically you just start understanding the core of where there was a psychological, they call it a conflict shock. You understand the symptoms, and then you can, with awareness, shift out of that. So my point is, that's all about letting the body heal itself. It's the exact opposite of giving your authority away. It's you start understanding your authority, that your body can heal itself and how that works. So it's really the complete opposite of pharmaceutical medicine and even most of the natural medicines. Yeah. I don't know if I had any more to say with that, but Right. That's brilliant. That I think you know what? I think since they introduced television, they've just been full on giving us like everything to get our authority out of us. Physically, you give it to the doctor. You go to school and you give it to the teacher and the principal. You're just told what to do. That's just, manufacturing little people that give their authority away. You go to the religion and you're giving it away to God or the priest. So I think all of these systems, and they've really gotten pushed with the television and now the internet. The media has just made it really easy to get people on board with all that.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Those are all brilliant examples. Let's go ahead and move into the human design, the science of differentiation, and what human design, that system, has to say about this. Of course, this information was brought in by Robert Krakauer, who renamed himself Ra Uru, who had this experience with this, what he calls a design crystal. And his claim that no human had ever encountered a design crystal before, but that they had all encountered personality crystals. And I wonder if that's related to, how others channel or other quote unquote religious experiences. But Ra claimed to encounter something very much other. And there's another term that me and Nancy have been using in reference to that. But I think we won't touch on that yet, because we're just going to present human design the human design perspective fairly neutrally. But I think, Nancy, we should start with what it means to be in a body. We had a conversation the other day about how being in the body, like the practice of being present in your body and moving in your own flow according to your own specific authority, is something that aligns you automatically. And there's been others who've been talking about in the New Age about aligning with oneself. So they're talking about the same thing. They might not be using human design language, but they're talking about like the nervous system and breath, and they're talking about everything aligning in the body. And I feel like what they're talking about is this following your authority, this being in the vehicle, and what human design talks about as the experiment, which is to move with your own flow, with your own, trusting your own intelligence of your body, not your mind, not the worries or the projections of the mind. The mind can only be in two places, and that's the past or the future. The mind is never in the present. Only the body is, and the body's where everything occurs. So it's our address, it's our home, it's our true home. And so, Nancy, do you want to extrapolate on this or nuance it? We've been talking about this, and I think this is just so important for people to really embody on every level, because it's not just human design that says it, but it is human design that says it in such a way. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I think you said that well, and I agree. Human design kind of gives if you want to use the word science, it gives the method of how our vehicles work, and how by being authentically in them, we align. It just shows you how it happens and how you can align yourself. But I've thought also of the many, I don't know, meditative things I did, and many of them talk about witness consciousness, not paying attention to the mind. Some of them say you push the mind down and stop thinking, but that's really not it. It's just watching, being the watcher of your thoughts and the watcher of your vehicle, and fully embodied. Yeah, it's actually at the core of a lot of the old teachings. And human design, I just think it's just rather brilliantly shows how things actually work. And the real brilliance of it is you don't have to believe it. In fact, don't believe it. Just practice it and see for yourself, and see and then you know it by doing it, which is really the only truth, in my opinion. You can't, it just goes back to the mind can't really know things. We can have a ton of theories, but when you live it, then you know it.
And I'll give some quick examples to ground this for everyone. A lot of you are on my some of you are on my Discord, so this is something we talk about a lot, we discuss a lot. And those of you who are not, I'm gonna really ground this for you. I mean, it's very as a manifesting generator, and anyone as a generator, like it's a little bit more simple in its expression. I mean, we're sacral beings. We have full life force. We have full access all the time to life force energy. So for us, we only know who we are in response. Like this, doing this live, all these things that I'm saying, none of this live was planned, by the way. I mean, other than the live itself. Me and Nancy have been talking about this for a while. I've been talking about this in the Discord. We've all been talking about this in our general life ever since we've kind of waken up to what's happening. And it's only really in response to what is in front of me every day that I know who I am. That is the generator frame. And that's turns out to be really true. Like when I have clients who want this reading or that reading, and then sometimes I'll get like pairs or like 2 or 3 clients that want a specific type of reading, and maybe I haven't done it for a while, or maybe I want to try a new method, whatever it is. Like I'll get that hit from the verse, and if it's correct, my response will be, okay, I'm going to do that type of reading. I may have to do some research, I may have to get really into it, and it's awesome because that's all in response. I didn't mentally decide I wanted to work on this week or this month, but it's in response to a need. It's in response to what others are presenting to me or want me to look at for them, and as a business relationship. I mean, it's just amazing as a generator how every day I am where I am and I don't really know anything until there's something in front of me, whether it's a bird singing, or whether it's the sun coming up over the horizon, or whether it's a hello to someone who crosses my path. It's fascinating and amazing how only then do I know. Only in response do I know whatever it is I'm knowing. And that knowing, I'm not meaning a mental knowing. I'm meaning a type of form knowing, a form knowledge, which is what human design is. It's knowing through the form, through the body, not a mental thing. Maybe initially a left brain concept. Obviously, these are terms and this is language we're using. Human design is always left brain initially, but this is, once it starts to get into the cells in the 7-year process, it's in the body. It's body form knowledge. Okay, I'll stop there, Nancy. Do you want to share or add to that, or whatever you want to do?
I don't think I have anything to add to that.
As a non, what's the correct term? So Nancy is not a generator type. So it'd be great, Nancy, if you could extrapolate on, I know that's not the correct term to say non-energy type because that's bullshit. But
that is the correct term.
But would you speak for that kind of people? There's, go ahead.
Like explain the differences. So let me ask you, Mario, are people in the chat, are some of them not at all familiar with human design? Should I start at a very basic level?
There's some that are not, correct. There are a lot that are, and there's some that are they just know their type, but they're not.
I'm feeling kind of to talk just very briefly about the neutrino stream, just to get the basics.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think?
Go ahead, sure.
Okay. So I'll start with the basics of human design is that we're living in a sea of neutrinos, and neutrinos are subatomic particles. And the founder of human design talked about them before science discovered them, quote unquote. But science has, quote unquote, discovered them. And the deal is, they're these little subatomic particles all over the place. The sun cranks out 70% of them, the stars, most of the rest, and they're information carriers. And our vehicles have the ability, not only the ability, but it's the necessity of filtering them. And these particles move through everything. So our vehicles with what's called a dark matter design crystal, personality crystal, both of those in our beings, in our physical beings, they filter these neutrinos. And when the neutrinos move through or around stars, they get imprinted. That's why astrology works. That's why there are different aspects to Venus and Mars and so on, different characteristics. It's because the neutrinos are literally passing through or in and around them and getting information and then going into us. And they go into us based on mostly our moment of birth and how we're aligned at that time. So all of our physical vehicles have different life in the ancient teachings, or the chi or the prana. It's the neutrinos. You could also kind of call it spirit or life force. I think of it as life force. So when Mario is talking about he's an energy type or a sacral being, it means that in his body, the generator bodies, they are set up that when life presents itself, if something moves toward him, anything, a dog, a person, his body responds to that immediately. And this has to do with the flow of life and the flow of the neutrinos and how it interacts in his body. His is set up, it's called an energy type. And so he will immediately feel in his body if something is correct for him or not. Or if someone asks him as well, if someone asks, hey, Mario, do you want to go out to dinner? He'll be like, no, I know I don't want to go out to dinner. Or he'll be like, yes, I know I do. But it's not his mind, it's through the body. So a non-energy type, which is myself, a projector, the body's situated differently. And I happen to be an emotional projector. So what that means is when I am asked to do something or energy comes at me, I don't have an immediate access to an answer, especially for big things like where do you want to live? If people are asking me if they want to be friends, relationships, things like that, there's a flow of energy that goes through my body that I have to wait it out. It's called a wave. So if someone asks me, if I want to, I don't know, go out with them, like on a date, I say, well, let me think about that. I'll get back to you. And I have to wait through my wave. So that is part of what it is to be a non-energy being. But it's not all of it. Because actually, I think I should, I'm not speaking entirely correctly, because actually generators, I think, can have sacral authority too. The non-sacral beings do not have consistent access to life force energy. We have life force energy, but it sort of ebbs and flows, whereas the sacral beings, like the generators, like Mario, have consistent access to it. So I feel like, gosh, I've kind of confused a couple of different things there. Sorry, Mario. Let's see.
No worries. Yeah, no, I mean, it's too, maybe it's not in line with what we're talking about to get into the basics so much, but just that contrast is enough, because that is a huge, because it's underscoring what human design is, which is the science of differentiation. The generators can just be in response to life in that ocean of neutrinos as we live in. But the non-energy types, the projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, they have homework to do. Us generators, we don't need to get in too much into the mind to figure this stuff out. We are to a large extent. But the non-energy types, you guys, usually it's suggested to explore a little more into it. And so if any of you guys are those types, we have a lot of projectors on our Discord, a lot of 5-1 projectors. It's so hilarious. And they, they know what it is. I don't want to make any generalizations about the non-energy types right now, so I'll leave it at that. And then maybe we can go into now a little about what I guess this is going to be our moment now, Nancy, to speculate on what's not really being said, but rather the implication of of that kind of tension, of that opposite. If human design supports that we are powerful in our own frequencies, right? Following our own body intelligence or whatever our authority is in our body, what then is the consequence for when we do not follow our authorities, when we live in the not self, in the homogenization field, in the not self, which is the majority of humanity, which will never change, which is the dominant frequency here in this realm, whatever this realm is. Me and Nancy have been talking about the Gnostic frames of perspective, which, is this the logos? Is this the logos of the Archon expressing itself of what this realm is? Because it's not a human design realm, really. It's human design describes it in terms of a not self, meaning it's not operating correctly. So is the expression of group consciousness something natural and inevitable here in this realm? I'll stop there. And Nancy, if you want to ask more questions to kind of push this further, however you want to approach that.
Oh, there's so much there, Mario. How do you want to go? Where do you want to go with that?
You're right. There's too much probably. This is more kind of anticipation for a second live. There's something about my sense of human design and what it's expressing is that we're in some kind of realm that obviously is not following the body's intelligence or authority. What that means, what the consequence of that is expressed in human design with the terms, as I noted, homogenization, not self, kind of a collective that's slowly coming to an end, or rather a tribal circuitry in the circuit board body, in the body graph, that in humanity that's coming to an end in 2027. So I'll say this as maybe the most important marker to note here is that human design predicts, in a way, it's its own eschatology, its own kind of cosmological frame on what its conceptions of the future will be. And the first prediction is 2027. The switch over from the cross of planning to the cross of the sleeping phoenix implies the end of a tribal way of being for humanity. Not necessarily an end for the collective, but an end for the tribal. And that has to do with the circuitry of the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix being individual. It's the 2034 and it's the 3955. But the 3955, that's individual as well. So yes, so it's predicting some sort of end to tribal consciousness. So, and not so much collective, or do you think collective? Maybe this is something we really need to hammer down to be clear on, Nancy. What's your sense of this?
I can't speak more only to the general. I can't speak so much to those more specifics, but the general evolution that human design is saying is happening, it's kind of odd. It's like, yeah, the institutions will break down. So I think that's correct. The tribal institutions, where they're already breaking down. And people will be more, humans will be more relying on themselves. And human design says then it's really crucial that you are, it says following your strategy and authority. It means you're following what your vehicle is leading you to, and rather than your mind. It will become crucial. What's interesting is that, right, it seems that it's going individual in a sense, but what's happening after 2027 is new types of beings are going to be born. The raves, he calls them. And these beings are collective isn't the correct word. They have consciousness in a penta, in fives. They are very different than we are. And the greater evolution that human design says we're going through is not individual consciousness. It is into a very large group consciousness. And this is a whole big topic. that we've been discussing. So I think I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, so just to push that a little further, what it seems is being suggested through the human design system is that we're here to align with our own consciousness. Now, there's no tension said about, there's nothing said. The human design system is very, I don't know how to say, very conservative in its expression. It's wisely focusing only on itself and what it's kind of supporting for humanity. If we instigate that for a moment, what we get is that there's a suggestion to align with one's consciousness, but instead of a suggestion to align with other consciousness, rather there's just a qualification of it. There's something called the penta that's described when 5 humans get together, and how when there's 6 humans, it doesn't work. One human will always be up and running around and won't be able to ground into the 5. The same goes for the 2, or the 3 rather. If there's 2 humans together, it's a pair, so the polaric energy works. But if there's 3 humans, then the polaric energy is broken. The best it can always be made to work, though. The best example a buddy gave me the other day was the band Rush from Canada. You know, they had 3 members. They had Neil Peart on drums, they had Geddy Lee as the bassist, and I forget the guitarist's name. But when they would tour, the guitarist and the bassist would tour in the buses, and the drummer would, Neil Peart, he would ride motorcycle from gig to gig, or he'd bike from gig to gig. So it was obviously they made it work. They accepted it, because in 3s, 1 will always be ignored. And the same within 5s, the 6 will be ignored. It won't be able to connect with that numerical sequence of humans together. So more and more, this is looking like we're graphs, we're circuit boards, we're pieces of some kind of larger puzzle. Is that larger puzzle nefarious? It sounds so. It actually sounds very anti-human. And in a sense, it's a strange concept to say that humans are independently are an ideal expression of a puzzle piece. And yet when you put all these puzzle pieces together, it's inimical to the individuation itself. But that seems to be the implication we're dealing with here, is that group consciousness is something inimical to the human essence, perhaps even destructive. And we're seeing this, and we've seen this for way too long, for this idea that I'm expressing right now not to just be obvious to us. I think maybe I'm pushing that too far. Nancy, you want to respond to that?
Oh, no, I think I'll just say what I'm understanding from human design now, straight up. It's not pleasant, I have to say. And Ra would always say, this is not pleasant. And I didn't get it till I finally understood what he's talking about. But here's what I'm understanding. And this is what the Ra didn't make this up. The information came to him from this design crystal. And it's that this entire, whatever you want to call it, universe is almost a pre-fetus. It is a gestating, quote unquote, being. And we're almost like cells. Our bodies are housing personality crystals for the purpose of test driving them to see if this personality crystal will, quote unquote, work effectively in the larger being that is the evolution and is this universe. And so the human vehicles that we have were only designed to have self-reflected consciousness, or consciousness where we're consciousness individually for a certain period of time, and that is coming to an end. We are not meant to evolve these consciousnesses individually. We're hitting now the peak in the next 1,000 years, and that's it. Then it will be done. And because this entire universe is really sort of in a pre-fetal stage, with the end game being one consciousness for the entire universe. So, right, basically, we're just a test drive of almost, I think it's an ajna cell, in fact, a cell that's part of the brain of the new being, or the being that will be birthed. It's almost hard to talk about. It's fairly bizarre, but that's what human design says. We're passenger consciousness. We're individual consciousness in these bodies, but it's passenger. We're not creative beings. We're here to witness the life process in these bodies as we are living here. And starting in 2027, a new type of being will be born that, as I said before, will have a different kind of consciousness than we do. The evolution is toward group consciousness. And then that group consciousness is basically going to become like cells in the larger body of this universe.
Yeah, I know. This is like
crazy talk. I'm saying this is like crazy talk, but
I know. I almost all I can do now is just like restate what you did in a different context, so we can maybe have a graduated understanding of this, because it's so wild, and it's like a science fiction movie, a devolved science fiction movie.
Yeah, it is.
Because I mean, essentially, and I'll just repeat some of Nancy's expression here. Is the implication is that we are not a creative expression of consciousness, like it's been said. According to human design, we are not creative or in our expression, but rather we are a type of consciousness that is passive. It's the idea.
We're watching. We're
that we're just watching the show passively.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, because the idea is that there's nothing we could do about the show. I mean, if we get together in groups and create a revolution and destroy all the governments, guess what? That's what they want.
Yeah.
They have all this set up. They want us to destroy them. And that's probably what we'll do. React, because we don't live in passenger consciousness. We live in the not self. So it just makes so much sense to me. I can see it all clearly now. They're going to set it up so we light up and set basically all these mental control mechanisms on fire. I mean, they're still going to roll from wherever they roll from, but they're going to give the appearance that we're going to be destroying all these systems, right? I mean, they're seeding that in our own consciousness. What a show this is, right? What a show. But it's all being set up. So what can we do but observe this? It does really seem that way. Go ahead.
No, this is going to seem tangential, but it's in answer to the question, what could we do? And what Ross said was, you can't do anything to change the aura of the planet. The only thing is love yourself. If we all loved ourselves, which means aligned ourselves to life, which means became true passenger consciousness, and the neutrino stream filters naturally through us, that would change the aura of the planet out of the anger, frustration, bitterness, stress. Now, is that going to happen? Is everyone going to do that? No, probably not. But it goes back to the only quote unquote help we can be is to align ourselves properly to life. I guess that just feels right to me. To the vibrancy of life is what I call it. And when one does that with their vehicle, you're not making the decisions from the mind for yourself. You're making it from your vehicle in alignment with the neutrino stream of life. The body relaxes, life becomes interesting and in the flow. That's really the only thing, it seems to me, it's the only thing really to do to really have a enjoyable life in the flow with vibrancy, and the only thing that could quote unquote help. Not being part of groups, unless it's in your design to be part of groups. I want to say that. And I think for some people it is. it certainly isn't for me. But for some people, if it was in their design to be part of a group to do a certain thing, great. But that's not because your mind said it, or everyone says, you have to go do this thing or go to that football game or join this church. Rather, that decision comes from your being.
Yeah, I mean, I to nuance that is just to say what many, what's being said, not just in the, I don't like to be stuck or to stick myself in a system or a specific frame. I mean, it just so happens that human design, perhaps transurfing, perhaps Toltec shamanism, are all very close frames that talk about this in their own way, in their own linguistic, in their own words. But this is what it is. And does this mean we turn off the show? Does this mean we get off social media? It just means we make time for both, I think, because we're in that space now, in that space in between, where things are going to turn both ways in the extreme. Some people say we're going to be completely digitized, and we don't want to get into that. That's horrific. I mean, any type of science fiction conception of being trapped in some sort of holographic digital, we already are to some extent. Imagine being in it forever. I mean, that is what hell is, right? That's what so the old term for hell is repetition. But for right now, we have a choice every moment to connect with the digital or to connect with the real world outside, with the natural world, at least as real as we, as it feels to us. Again, we don't know where we are. We don't know anything. We're passenger consciousness. Only the body really knows. Our mind is the blueprints of our mind, of our conceptions, has been founded and seated, somewhere else. I mean, obviously, if we're just a kind of stillborn expression of consciousness, as Nancy was describing through that book that we've been talking about, the idea that we're just an experiment in individuality, like that's it. And the lines of that experiment is that all we can do is perceive. All we can do is perceive. All we can do is passively perceive what is occurring and be in flow with that, not resisting, not accepting, but just in a form of beingness. Nancy, you want to add anything? I think we'll end here. I'd love to go on for 3 hours, but it's best we have something for next time. And I'm really enjoying this, so we should have a next time soon.
Oh, I just like what you said about just being. Yeah, I think that's it.
So we'll keep it here. If you guys have any questions you want to ask in the next 2-3 minutes, we'll address them. So I'll wait maybe 5 minutes and see if you guys have questions, concerns, contentions, criticisms, whatever's welcome. And as you guys are thinking about that, I'll just say a couple ideas for next time. I'd like to do a second continuing this because Nancy and I have touched on a lot of different directions here. Hopefully it was cohesive and clear to some extent. If you feel a repeated listen or two will help. There's some things that we touched on and didn't quite expand on. One thing I would like to do in the next one, and I'll talk about it out loud so you guys can respond, and also so I have an idea. We want to talk about the cosmology of human design in relation to Sirius, in relation to Jupiter, in relation to specific planetary lights and bodies. And there's a story there. There's a very intricate story there that's fascinating. And this is basically the cosmological frame or perspective of human design, and how this biverse came to be, not universe, but biverse, based on juxtaposition theory. Maybe we can go into juxtaposition theory next time in more detail, and the cosmology, and anything else you can think of, Nancy. I'm going to add in some more stuff, but I'm going to give you an opportunity.
Oh, that's a lot already. I can't think of anything else.
There's a question. Let's see. Thanks, Denise. Appreciate that. Denise was saying she knew we would have a great conversation. Twilight Miss is asking, do you guys use True Sky Sidereal for human design now? That's a great question. I can address that now. As you know, there's a big tension with the camps of Placidus and Sidereal. I don't know if you know about this, Nancy. So this goes back into early astrology and how it began in both Greece and in India. I mean, a lot of the early Western astrologers like Vedas was using sidereal, and sidereal is a specific frame of conceiving the zodiac through the constellations. And the problem I find with sidereal is we don't know where the beginning and ending of of the constellation. We can't precisely define the beginning and end of a constellation. And that's created a problem that's run rampant in the Indian astrological systems in Jyotish, which is they have like 8 or 9 different systems of sidereal, and none of them correspond to each other. I mean, they're all off by degrees, so it's not consistent. Sidereal is very interesting in its expression. I study the nakshatras. I think Jyotish has incredible methods, and what they developed is incredible. But the different, my take is it's the same difference. In other words, the Western world corresponds to the frequency of Placidus, for good or bad. I mean, none of this is ultimately accurate. It's only accurate because we say it is, because we match the frequency. We know our calendars are off, but does that matter? We correspond to the frequency of whatever it is, whatever this realm dictates overtly. So if you want to correspond to sidereal, you can. It's a frequency thing, I feel. And if you want to correspond to Placidus, you can. I can get into it. I think there's a movement to support sidereal human design and sidereal astrology again. That's been happening. I don't match with it. That's fine. That's cool. It's just what it is. There's, you can, or we can explore both. I mean, I still look at sidereal charts in Jyotish when I do my gem evaluations. So, I like to compare. When I compared my own personal sidereal with Placidus in my gem evaluations, it was so different, but it was also the same. If you looked at the aspects, it actually kind of represented the same elemental discord or balance or imbalance rather. And so that's how I see it. I can get into it more next time, but anything else, you guys? Hopefully that answered Twilight Mist. We can always chat about it another time. And I think that's it. I don't see anything else. Nancy, you'll see the comments. You'll see the chat after we're done here, or tomorrow if you want to look at it. And thanks so much for being here, you guys. Really appreciate it. This was awesome. I could feel the energy flowing. I got a little amped up and started talking really quick, but usually I talk slow, so it's kind of fun, different.
Yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. It was awesome.
Oh, there's Kuba. Hey, Kuba. So yeah, sounds good. See you guys all next time, and take care. And thanks again, Nancy.
Thanks, Mario.